myself Vaibhav. In today's session of Visual JForex, we will be continuing our work with the indicator named Stochastic Momentum Index SMI. This is going to be third and the final part in this algorithmic development series using the indicator SMI. And in today's session, I will be trying to complete the sell side of the equation. In last two sessions, the foundation was laid for the algorithm to be completed in full, and so far the buy side is complete. Now it's the turn of the sell side. So let us now head to the Visual JForex board. Here the instrument subscription was carried out. The position amount has been defined at 0. Then I got these SMI blocks of the hourly time period. The get historical candles, candle amount is 4, so we will be looking at last 4 hourly candles to look at the price volatility. There's a get historical candle with a shift value of 1. We will be retrieving the last hour's price data using this, and then to place the order to pinpoint the exact entry point, these 10-second candles will come handy. And here certain conditions were laid that we need the difference between the last 4 hours high and the low to be more than 20 pips. So for that purpose, this 20 pips output was defined, and in this case the 7 pips were defined to look at the difference of last hour's close and opening price, which needs to be more than 7 pips. Here the actual difference was calculated, and these two output values will be compared with these two values respectively. And on the lower side, these if-else blocks have been added to define the conditions which need to be in place prior to the execution of the trade for the buy. Once these 12 requirements are in place, the trade can go through, and here this open at market trade will happen with these parameters. Now I will not really go into the details of this. You can always go back to the last session, which was named Stochastic Momentum Index Part 2. Now today is the turn of the sell side, and I will give you a brief refresher of what are the requirements for any sell trade to be executed. I will change it to hourly time horizon. This is a Euro USD hourly chart, and we want to trade with the trend, and for that we need the SMI value to be below 0, and we are going with the traditional requirement that for sell trade we need the SMI output to be below 0, and for buy trade the requirement was of the positive output value for the SMI. Now whenever we see that the SMI value is in between 0 and 20, and as soon as the crossover happens, the SMI drops below the signal value, we will be looking to initiate the trade. In last hour, that crossover should happen, and in the penultimate hour, the SMI output was still above the signal value, and only in last hour it has dropped below it. That means the trend is likely to get stronger, or it is already getting stronger, and as the price momentum is picking pace, we are seeing this crossover in the SMI, and that's the reason why we want to look to initiate the trade as soon as the crossover happens. So that's the logic behind it, and we need, as I said earlier also, the SMI to be below 0, and on the lower side we will cap the lower side at around -20, -20. So the penultimate hours SMI output should be in between these two bands of 0 and -20, and in last hour we will have to allow that value to drop even below -20, as we see that the price momentum should be gaining pace, and as a result of that, it is most likely than not the SMI output will be below -20. So on the lower side we are not capping the output value for last hour's SMI. So now that the logic has been explained to you, and I hope you have been able to understand, it's fairly simple. So here we have to carry out some calculations also. I kind of omitted to explain to you that we also want the price action to be strong, and for that we will need the last 4 hours cluster to have shown good enough volatility, and to that effect we want the high and the low to be apart by at least 20 pips. So that calculation will also need to be considered, and also in the last hour the closing price should be below the opening price by at least 7 pips, and for that we will have to define the difference between the last hour's open and the closing price, and then compare it to the predefined value of 7 pips. This time around we will need to deduct the closing price from the opening price, as the closing price will be lower compared to the opening price, and only then the trade should take place. So one new calculation needs to be carried out. Apart from that, all these three values will be useful while defining the conditions for the sell side also. So I will take this calculation expression raw block, and in this we will have to calculate the candle 18's difference between its opening value and the closing value. So we will need to take candle 18's close and the open price. We have to deduct the closing price from the opening price. It is going to be A1 minus A2, and this will be okay. Alright. Now with this calculation in place, I think I can join it on the lower side to the multiple action, as I don't think we will need to add any new blocks moving forward, and if we do need, of course we will add it as and when the requirement arises. Okay. Here we will have to compare the SMI output first, and after that we will also consider the price action. So we are going to need 12 if else blocks, if I remember correctly, from the build for buy side, and our algorithm is going to be symmetric. So whatever conditions were placed for execution of the buy trade, the inverted conditions will be placed for sell trade. I have got 7. I will need 5 more. Alright, all 12 in place. Now we look at the SMI output value for penultimate hour. The hour with the loopback period of 2. And this SMI and signal value should be below 0. First input less than second input. Signal 16 should also be below 0. But both these values should also be above minus 20. Okay. After that, we also have to check if the SMI value was above signal line or not. And as the requirement is of crossover, we will need the penultimate hours SMI value to be above the signal value. First input greater than second input, and then in last hour the SMI should drop below the signal line. So in this case, first input less than second input. Okay. And last hour's SMI values should be below 0. So first input less than second input. Signal 12 should also have been below 0. Now that we are done with defining the SMI requirements, we can consider the price difference, how the price action has played out, and here this difference of high low for last 4 hours should be more than 20 pips. First input greater than second input, and the difference which we calculated just a while back between the last hour's open and the close this calculation, the subtraction of the closing from the opening value should be more than 7 pips. And after that, we can consider the last hour's closing price, and as and when the price starts to drop below the last hour's closing price, we will look to initiate the trade. First input greater than second input. Now all we need to define is this condition, which is going to involve the candle 18's closing value. So I will take candle 18 candle close, and then we will compare last hour's closing value with the 10-second candle closings. The candle 20 has a look back period of 1 and candle 21 has a look back period of 2. So we will need candle 21 to have closed higher, and after that the candle 20 should close lower compared to the candle 18 candle close. So we need candle 21 candle close to first input greater than second input, and after that candle 20, which has a look back period of 1, it should have closed lower. So in this case it is going to be first input less than second input. Now that we are done with the defining of the requirements, we can bring in market block. I will arrange these blocks in no time. We are almost done with this. Just few moments more. I will have to join this to the multiple action block, the starting block. Okay, so now you can see that algorithm iteration flow is going all the way till this block, and this is going to be a sell order. So this will be changed to sell. Default instrument remain as it is. Trade amount I will change to 0.1 million. This should be decided ideally as per the equity of your account. Slippage. Slippage of 2 pips should be good enough. Stop loss is going to be 15 pips. Take profit is going to be 30 pips. So here we are done with the setup, and as you can see, this is symmetric. We had used 12 blocks while defining the buy side. We have used equal number of blocks while defining the sell side, and as I reminded to you, the conditions are kind of mirror images of each other. So that's it from my side, and I hope you have been able to understand the logic, and hopefully you will be able to develop it on your own on this Visual JForex board. And as and when it will be finished, you should run it on the historical tester and see whether it is profitable or not, and accordingly you can decide to use it for your trading purposes. So thank you all for joining in. See you next time. Till then, goodbye.